Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a special guest for you, Coach Matty Holem. Mikey, do you want to give a little bit of a further introduction, real quick, and then Coach, you can kind of build off of what Mikey doesn't cover. So
It'll be a lot that I don't cover. So I met Coach down in obviously in Omaha. That's where we're based out of. He coached in the Corn Belt League for a year, I believe, and then I think he moved on to some better things. Um, I have not had you as a coach, but just from seeing you, interact with your team when you were here, you're just a guy, that's all for the players. You know exactly what you're talking about. You've been around the game, a while. I think I heard you coached in the minors, here and there. I know you've coached all over the United States. Um, and you're just a real you're a coach for the guys for sure. I know you stick up for your guys. You're not gonna let anybody shit talk them. You're there for them. So thank you for taking the time today to be on here.
I appreciate it, man. And going back to what you said about the players, at this level and these levels, college and independent professional baseball and all the way up to you get to the major leagues, it's about development and developing guys and helping them move to the next level. So you kind of got to be, if you're going to be successful, you have to be a player's guy because you have to earn their trust. This isn't really, your job isn't to win baseball games at this level, to be honest with you. It's fun when you're competing and you're winning and you're doing the right things that way. But ultimately, what it comes down to is developing guys to get them to that next level. So you really kind of got to get to know them, there's coaches out there that, I've seen at the college level, summer league and high school that don't even, communicate with their guys. And they're too old school. And I'm a pretty old school guy, but I have a new school flair to me. And a lot of that comes from, being able to have relationships with guys, hanging out with them, not hanging out with them on the, hey, let's go get a beer after the game type of thing. But getting to know them on a personal level. I've got a roster full of guys right now for the team I'm coaching this summer that I talk to almost a lot of them on a daily basis. And, there's several guys that I get year after year, and I've got 5 guys this year that I've had for the last 3 years that are following me around. And I've been, I'm fortunate to have to bounce around to a couple of different leagues. And, even for a coach, it's always about moving up to the next level and get to the highest level you can get to as a coach. And so you can help players. And, so I've been able to bring back players, and I like to do that every year, and I've been pretty successful with that. And I've been blessed to have players that want to come back to me, and it's because of the relationships. I when I sign a player, I don't get to just know what they do on the field. I talk about their education, and that's a big thing at this level in college baseball and stuff like that, is making sure they're making the grades to be able to stay eligible. And usually when a guy calls me, and the first question I have, I don't care what you did on the baseball field, I want to know how your grades are. How's things going to school? And then, you get to know their family. I've got a lot of relationships, and I don't like to talk to their parents about baseball. And I won't have the conversation about their playing time or what they got to do to get better and none of those things. But I will have off the field conversations with them, like how's things going, and I get to know their families a little bit. And I have a lot of them reach out to me. And I don't mind, reaching out back to them, as long as it stays, away from what they can do as a baseball player, but on the personal level, I've got a lot of friends that, are parents of the players, or player parents or whatever. But yeah, absolutely, man. I love it. I love it. I appreciate you guys for having me.
Mm-hmm. So just to kind of build off
that,
Mikey.
You wait. I have something.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's really cool.
Sorry,
so like I think yeah, it started already. We kind of started here. Over the episodes that academics is important for kids, especially from high school to college and college, just in college. But I don't think we've had somebody on here yet that's kind of not focused on that, but has made that a big part of getting to know a player. I think that it doesn't fly under the radar. It does not. But it's super cool to kind of see that aspect especially coming out of a coach. Just because I feel like that's just something that is not super, I guess, quote unquote important maybe. It's just, to me it just seems like you've got like all the super not minute, but the important small things that you focus on, like getting to know a player and his family. Normally it's just getting to know a player, but the support systems for players are often families. So that's super cool to see and just hear.
Yeah, education is important, man. Going back to, and I think the culture of baseball's changed a lot. It's more about winning now, and it came with the evolution of travel baseball, and you see it on social media. The parents every weekend, you see the kids sticking their rings up in the air and all that. And you hear about how many travel ball tournaments they're winning and all these things, but you don't hear about how many kids are moving to the next level. And it's all about winning. In the off seasons, I don't coach at a school or anything. I help out at a few places, and advise a lot of players, but I do a lot of lessons for kids. And I even, dabble in, I move around a lot. My wife's in the Navy. So we're in a new area this year. So I don't get to, I was in the Midwest there for a while. And I was doing some things there, but I had a high school program. And every day when the players came in, and they came in 5 days a week, they came in at 7:00 and they stood in line. And what they did is they handed me their phone. And every day I looked at their grades every single day. Oh, wow. And if they were missing something, if they were missing assignments, they were going to use that 2 hours that they were supposed to be getting better in the cage to set over there. And their parents, this was in the agreement. I didn't charge my kids money. They paid for their cage time. They came in, they threw $10 in for the cages we rented during the winter, and we talked baseball. But, the first thing we got through that day was making sure they're grades. And there was kids that had to sit over there and do their homework during that 2 hours. And that was part of the agreement. You're not going to show up if you ain't making the grades, because if you're not making the grades, I really can't help you. Because, no school's going to take a chance on you, no coach. It doesn't matter how good of a baseball player you are. If you don't have the grades, it don't matter. So, I instill that into the kids, even the guys, that I have that are in college now. I've got a kid that's UCF. He's their starting shortstop this year. Every conversation we have starts with, hey, man, Rafael, how's the grades? You're going to play in the big leagues one day. Your dad was a big leaguer. You got it in your blood, but I'm going to ask you about your grades. Because if you don't make it through college, no one's going to take a chance on you. You're going to go through indie ball, and that's a tough route to go, these days. And so grades are super important. And I think that, when you're a coach, if you just tackle one thing, and it's not just grades, it's what they do in the community as well. You're building young men and not just baseball players. And if you can build a young man, you're going to make one hell of a baseball player at some point in your life. And I'm big on telling people that there's two kinds of guys who play baseball. There's guys who can play baseball that are good at it and good baseball players. And then there's ball players. And ball players have that mix of education, good person in the community, and then as well as good on the baseball field, good teammate, those things. So it starts with the grades. And if you can't figure it out in the classroom, you're never going to figure it out in the field.
Awesome. Just going back to the relationship, So obviously you've had a good way of building those relationships. So I just wanted to kind of ask, what's your kind of way to create buy-in, or just ways that you can build those relationships with those players that last, 3 or 4 years, like you talked about?
It's cool when you're a baseball guy. It's kind of natural. And when you can relate to the players, I learned more from the players in the summer than they probably learned from me. Baseball's pretty simple. You catch the ball, throw the ball, and hit the ball. It's the other things. And if you, if you can relate to the players, I'm out there having a good time with them. I'll go in there and I'm joking with them. And I'm pretty persistent, in the preseason, getting to know them. I'll bug the shit out of you. I'm going to call your phone. I'm going to text you. I'm going to text you at 6:00 in the morning on the East Coast. So when you wake up, you're going to see what I had to say that day, and I'll put it in the group meet. Hey, this is what's going on. And I'll do it early. I'm up at 4:00. I was up at 4:00 today. It's Sunday. It's what a coach does, and I'll send that. And I'll send that text out in the morning. If I get some information, our schedule come out. Hey, this is where we are. And I want y'all to like it as soon as you get up. And I start building that, hey, I'm going to communicate with you, and I want you to communicate back. And then, when you're checking on the grades, that's when players start to realize that you actually care about them. When you're checking on their family, I've got a young man we just signed from Seminole State whose father's in real bad shape. He's going to pass away in the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks. He doesn't have long to live. And I went down to Florida this week from Virginia Beach. I was down there in Florida this weekend to see him. So, when you do that and you're able to go out of your way to make them feel like you care about them as a person, immediately that they start buying into you as a person. And then when you get there in May for summer ball, guys already, we're in a group meet together. We're already communicating. I'll post memes in there, inspirational things. I set up a show, the 2022 tournament over this winter break, where guys were competing on the PlayStation with each other from across the country. And we did those things. So guys are getting to know each other a little bit. I'm fortunate enough to, I don't know about fortunate, but I had a young man, last year who was coming through a situation where his father had just passed away. So what I did immediately is I connected those two players together, and they're two of the same type. They like hunting and fishing and cars and all that stuff, and I hooked them up immediately. They're already best of friends texting. They're on each other's social medias, and they're going to live together this summer. So you start to create that bond before they get there. Makes things so much easier.
Wow. That's awesome.
That is impressive.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think to me that's unique. That's a very unique way of doing things. But and it obviously gets you the results. So
Yeah.
that is very cool to hear.
It's good. And, I've got guys, like I said, I've been fortunate enough, I try to carry at least 3 or 4 guys from the year before every year, and I'm lucky to get that many. A lot of guys move on to other levels, and other things, maybe not be in baseball at all or graduate and move on in life. And when you start keeping guys together for multiple years, they follow each other on social media right off the bat. You played the game, you know how it is. You guys go out after the games and you eat every restaurant in town. So you start hanging together, and it's been really cool. That's the best part about it, is watching these guys grow and seeing some of these guys end up in each other's weddings and godparents and best friends for life. And that's one of the cool things about baseball. Once you're in that fraternity, man, you kind of, you may hate some guys on the field, but off the field you may see each other at this little sandwich joint. You guys are sitting there talking and you're Snapchatting each other and whatever else y'all do.
So just building kind of off of that, when you have other guys come with you, do you trust that they're gonna like instill your coaching philosophies when you get a new team, or are you more so just everybody's back at square one, we're gonna grind from there?
Everybody's always back at square one every year, and I make it known. I've got some guys. There's a guy that I talk about a lot, Alex Miller. He's been with me. This will be the 4th year he's with me, and it started out weird for him, because when I was handed him by a guy who was my assistant coach, or going to be my assistant coach at the time, I was told he doesn't look like much of a baseball player. He's 5'10" maybe at the most, and 160 pounds, and he's a scrawny little guy, looks like the milkman. But he's got the best arm in the outfield you ever see, and he figures out how to get on base. And I brought him in, and I didn't play him. This was 21, I guess. So this will be the 4th year I've had him. But we were down in the Ohio Valley League. I didn't play him much, but the kid came every day, showed up, did everything I asked of him. And every time I threw him out there, he produced. But I had other guys, big D1 guys, and this kid's from Maine Community College or something like that at the time. And, he came and did everything the right way. And everything he asked of him, he did. He was a great teammate. He took care of his teammates every day. And it got to a situation at the end of the year where, at the end of the year, you lose players. We made the playoffs. We lost our D1 guys. I had to give him a start in the outfield, which, was kind of his position anyway. Started him in center. He was like 3 for 4. I think he had a triple, 2 doubles, and one ball that just barely missed just barely, didn't go out. Just at the top of the ball. Threw 2 guys out from center field to third base on back-to-back plays, and we don't think we threw anybody out all year. But he had an amazing year, an amazing game. I brought him back the next year. Last year or 2 years ago, and I told him the same thing. I tell him every year, when you come in, you start from ground zero. And I don't buy into the D1 JUCO stuff when it comes to summer ball. You're a general or whoever you're playing for at the time, and you lose all that, because when you go to pro ball, nobody gives a shit where you were before. It's where are you now, and we got to figure out how to compete as a team. So we got to figure out the best 9 guys to throw out there. But summer ball for me, and I explain this to guys, I want to win a championship. It's great. It's fun. I've been pretty blessed to win a few, and it's a fantastic time. But at the same time, my job in summer ball as a coach is to make sure guys are getting their reps in and getting them better and sending them back to school healthy. So I never, nobody comes in with a starting thing, but I want these guys, and I have these guys around as veteran guys, because they know my routines, because I like guys to do certain things every day. And if these guys are showing up like Alex Miller early, my philosophy, if you're not 15 minutes early, you are late. We don't start, at 10:30, you better be there. Actually, we are starting at 10:30. You don't show up at 10:30. 10:30, the first ball is going to be thrown, or you're in a stretch, or we're running, we're doing something. So you get guys that come back year and year, they kind of start, they kick off the team for you. They kind of kick off the routines for you because these guys kind of see how these guys have been going. And automatically, guys think, hey, this is coach's boy. He's their favorite. So we got to do what they're doing to make sure we get our opportunities. And that's kind of, and it helps when you bring those guys back because, yeah, they really do set the tone.
Awesome.
So kind of moving along with that, you said you had a guy who was, and that Alex kid, he's 5'10", 160. You have all your D1 guys that are kind of built up. They've been going through a little bit more of your programs like that. You see the competitive level and you keep bringing these guys back. Is there something that you kind of focus on trying to get some of those more underdeveloped guys learning from the D1 guys, or a lot more of your veterans besides the showing up early, and like trying to send them back to their colleges and everything with different skill sets?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you get a good mix, a good summer program has your mix of guys from every level. And the guys from D1, they need to learn a little bit from those other guys too. The grinding part, the how tough it is, because I don't know where you guys played your college ball or what you did, but if you played in D1, you're spoiled, man. You get the best uniforms, you get the best travel, you get the best hotels, the best food, all those things. And when you get them in there in summer ball, some of those guys, they don't know how to adjust to, hey, man, we might be eating hot dogs tonight after the game, and we don't have that nice spread. We don't have 15,000 fans in the stand. We may only have 800. So there's a lot of learning that goes on from all the guys. And I think if you get guys kind of building in and learning from each other during summer ball, I'm not there to teach really, and you don't really teach a lot. You're really kind of organizing things, and the guys kind of learn from themselves a lot, just kind of going through the motions and things like that. And, but sorry, man, I got off.
You're good.
It happens a lot on the show. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Totally. Because Mikey doesn't always talk about most of the time.
Right.
So
It's intimidating when you're looking at yourself in a screen and then you're trying to talk and trying to remember what you're trying to say. But I think a lot of the guys, they end up learning from each other, and they have to take a little bit from each other. And when you're a player, you should take a little bit from every situation you're in. You take a little bit from every coach. If you adopt one single way, of doing things, you're probably going to not be very successful, because unless that guy is in a Hall of Fame somewhere and you did it exactly by the book like he did, chances are you'd be wrong. So you got to take a little bit from everybody. And I like some of my younger guys that come in and some of those smaller schools to see what those other guys look like. To say, hey, man, this is where you could be if you're a JUCO guy looking to transfer to D1. This is how you got to look. This is how you got to work. And this is how fast you got to be, because the speed of the game is, the game doesn't change from NAIA to Division I. It doesn't change from Little League to the major leagues. It's the same game. It's just the speed of the game. So you see how fast those guys are doing it. And I think that's the big thing that those guys see. Pitching wise, obviously you see a lot better pitching in D1 than you do in JUCO ball or in AIA. Those guys are seasoned and they know how to pitch. So, I think there's a little bit of mix there.
So with your background and getting to know all these kids very well, just from a very personal standpoint too, and just the wide range of talent that you've seen, what do you see that kind of works in a kid going from high school to college, like in terms of like work ethic, or like what, I guess, body type? Just because, like, on here, we've talked a few times about what it takes to, get to the collegiate level from high school and how different it is, change with the changing of speeds and just talent and funding and all of that. What do you see from like a work ethic level, like what kids go where, and things of that nature?
I think having a good routine, and carrying it through, going, through the gym, your diet. There's a lot of kids out there, and it's kind of crazy. A lot of these college kids, and this is where a lot of them fails, where they leave mom and dad's house and they go off to college. Now they're feeding themselves. They have to decide what they want to eat. And the diet is the big thing. And you see it a lot in summer ball. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot because I haven't stressed it. But I sit there and watch you guys. You guys go out and they eat, and they're eating at these fast food joints. They're showing up to the ballpark with burgers and stuff like that before the game, and then they're eating all wrong. But then you got some guys who are pretty serious, and you could tell the difference in who's really working, because these guys will come up with their own food. They got their Tupperware bowl with their pre-made meal in it already, and they're ready to go. So I think having a good routine, with the weight room and then in the gym, I mean, as far as your dieting and all those things go, and being disciplined, I think that carries over. If you can keep that from, you eat at home and your parents usually feed you nutritious foods and make sure you're eating on a healthy schedule, if you can carry that over to your college and then keeping that routine of staying in the gym when someone's not standing over top of you, I think that translates pretty well.
Dang, that's
Perfect.
that's awesome. It's so just based off of the guests that we've had, that's the first time that a routine has kind of come up. Normally it's like the
Especially
get
in
bigger.
diet too. Like
Yeah, we have not
you don't
heard
hear that
anything about a
often.
dietary habit.
No, and so that's really unique.
It's
Damn, I
tough,
just keep using that word.
having a good diet and being a baseball player is tough. I mean, as when you're playing every day, especially summer ball, it's easy to stop at McDonald's and grab a double cheeseburger on the way to the park, so you have to stay disciplined. You really do. I mean, I'm 42, man. I ain't trying to stay in shape or anything. But back when I was playing, I tried to stay close to as diet as I could, and there was days where it was easy just to stop off at Sonic and grab a burger and then head to the park, But, if guys eat, because I had a friend, David Purnell. He was a kicker in professional football. And he played with the Packers a little bit back in early 99, 2000. And he told me one day, he talked to David Longwell, who was their starting kicker and their main guy. But he told me one day he was having a Coke, right? He was in their facility and he went to the pop machine and he said, he walked up to me, he said, man, you're putting sugar in your gas tank. It may be okay today, but if you keep doing this, you'll start feeling your legs fall out from underneath you. So if guys eat better, and they get the sleep they need and they stay away from, some of the things that youngsters do in the college level, that they'll have a better opportunity. They'll have a little better season. They'll stay in a little bit better shape. It's staying disciplined is the thing, and having a great routine. Baseball players are creatures of habits, and the only way that you're successful is having a good routine. I get up, and I'm not saying that my routine works for everybody, but I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. And at 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, I know I'm not going to have any phone calls. I'm not going to have any emails. That's my time to get the things I need to get out of the way that are important. And sometimes, I get a little worn out by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. But, if you stick with your routine, things seem to go a little bit better. If things start to fail, you can go back to that routine, in the cage. I talk a lot about hitting, or with hitters, is if you get in you start to fall into a little bit of a slide, and then get back into the cage, into your routine, and work that out in there, work your swing out in the routine. So everything in life, kind of, if you want to be successful, you got to have a good routine. You can't just fly by the night. You got to have a plan, man.
Excuse me. I agree with
Figure
you.
it out.
You know what, Mikey? Piss off. But I agree, especially nutrition kind of takes a backseat. Understanding that we play a game where it's very long, and it's one of the longest games you'll play. And there's a lot of downtime in between. So having that ability to fuel your body, not only before the game, but kind of in the middle of the game, keeping proper hydration in there, as well as maybe like a little snack, like a granola or something like that, to be able to sustain that energy through, 3, maybe 4 hours of gameplay, is essential. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
The game's long. The day is a long day, man. And if you're pouring sugar in your gas tank early in the day, you're gonna peter out by 9 o'clock, and that game don't get over till 10. And we need you from 9 to 10 in those last 3 innings. And so I mean, yeah, you gotta eat right. You have to eat right. You gotta put the right stuff in your body. And if you stay on that clock, if you find yourself waking up at a certain time every day, you don't need your alarm clock anymore. And so if you get into that routine, your body starts to check into that, and you're ready for the day. You're not, and you're not putting the sugar in there. You're not petering out and all those things. You're ready to go. And hopefully you're successful at 10 o'clock at night, and then you go do whatever you want, wear yourself down after that. But yeah, routine's big, man. You gotta have a good routine. You gotta stick to it.
As a coach with summer ball and trying to get all these different kids coming, you might get kids staying with host families. You might get kids just kind of living together in like apartments for like a couple of months. do you try to give them a little bit more of like instead of like just a schedule for practice, do you try to give them like nutrition sheets? Do you try to connect with their weight staff, their nutrition staff at the schools if they have it, just to try to see if you can help get that extra mile for them?
Usually what I do when I sign players and I talk to their coaches, and I talk to every coach I sign a player. And, basically what I go over with them is, I talk a little bit about what their goals are for them for the upcoming season. What is it that we need to do? If you need to put a little weight on, if that's something we do. And then I have the players, bring to them the first day when they report, they bring me their own player bio, right? And it talks about their experiences and things like that. And then it gives me a list of goals, what they got to do for the year. And then we go from there. I haven't done much with the nutrition thing before. This is something I'm really starting to focus on now because I feel myself getting older and I'm starting to feel it. My metabolism's going differently. And I'm starting to get a little bit of that dad bod going. So I'm starting to think more about the nutrition part. When you're young, you don't think about it as much, but you get older, you start thinking, hey, man, if I'd ate a little bit better, y'all like that, huh?
Yeah.
That's,
just the dad bod description.
yeah. Hey, man, I thought I was invincible. 40 years old, I still thought I was great. I got to 41 last summer or back in July, and I started looking at myself. It was at the end of the season. I'm like, man, even though I'm at the end of the season, I'm still not where I normally am right now. And then, my wife and I, we like to eat, man. So she's an Asian, so we eat a lot of Asian food, and
Damn.
we eat a lot. It's just the two of us, so it's easy for us to go out to eat every night and do those things. So I found myself eating bad. I'm like, man, I'm sluggish. I'm not feeling right. Then I started thinking back to when I was a player, man. If I was eating like this when I was a player, I'd been done by 3:00. I'm ready to take a nap by 5. And so, I thought about the New Year's and switching my diet around. And I think I need to make it important. So, if guys have those things, I don't generally have a big weightlifting thing during the season. I know that players get tired after 2 weeks. When you're playing every day, it's hard to get to the gym. And you see guys, pitchers different. You like your pitchers to work out 3 times a week. But if there's goals specific for coaches, yeah, I tackle into them because 3 times a season, I'll send the coaches out a report on the players, and I've got a scouting background. So I write up a scouting report on the players, and I let them know where they are. I kind of use that to send them, hey, I don't want you to think I'm just sitting here playing your players to win a championship. I want you to know that I'm invested in your program now. So I'm invested in getting this player better. And so I send them a little report at the beginning of the season. First day, we run the 60. I grade them, hitting everything, and then I send it to the coach. I said, this is my opinion on your player. With your goals, this is what I'd like to do with them. And then around All-Star break, we do that whole combine over again. And then I send them a report again, and then this is what their stats are so far. This is what they've done. This is what I think they've improved on. This is what I think that they still need to work on. And then at the end of the season, when they're done, after they go, I take the first day or 2 at the end of the season, and I write down everything that they've done, and I send it out to their coaches and say, hey, this is your guy. This is what he's done this season, and this is my assessment on it. You always have that exit meeting with the guys when they're turning their stuff in, and you sit down with them and you go over those notes, and you kind of you have to be honest with them. You really do. That's part of coaching. So, that's a way that you build a good relationship with other coaches in schools too, because they know that you're investing in their players, and that's how it's easy to be able to recruit players every year and get good quality ones.
So I have 2 questions, but they're in 2 completely opposite directions here. So bear with me. And it just went down to 1 because the other one slipped my mind.
Awesome.
So you're with the Generals this coming season, correct?
Yeah.
What league is that, and what does that league breakdown kind of look like in terms of games and stuff? So I know you know this, but so you coached in the Northwoods League.
Yep.
In the past, and that's where Coach Hobbs and Coach Sonny are this coming
Yep.
summer. So we know they have like 70 some odd games in 70 some odd days. Yeah. So do you have something like that, or I guess what's your guys' breakdown?
Our league it's one of the top collegiate summer leagues in the country. This will actually be the Valley League's 100th season and the Generals' 100th season. So it's a pretty big honor. And they actually started out as professional baseball way back in the day. They were like Class D, low-level minor league baseball. And minor league baseball was way different back in the day. And if you guys take a look back in the thing, they had a lot of town ball. and it was almost like a semi-pro setup where these guys would come, but the major league clubs would come and they would feed to these guys. So Waynesboro started out in the Shenandoah League way back in 1923, and they've grown from there. And they were I think until 1973 they were professional baseball, and then they switched over to the Collegiate Summer League idea. So we play a 44 game season, starting on June 1st and ending right around July 20th, the regular season. Then we go on. They call the Valley League the gateway to the major leagues. It's got a long history of sending a lot of guys. The Generals have 3 big ones: Brandon Inge, who was with, I believe, the Tigers for a long time. And then there's a few other ones I can't think of right offhand, but I think they've sent over 70 guys to professional baseball, which is pretty darn good.
Wow.
Then you got other teams in there like Harrisonburg and Charlottesville that have sent several guys to the big leagues. And you know, there's been a lot of guys. Sean Murphy for the Nationals was a long time. National was drafted while he was on the field in the Valley League. So there's a lot of cool stories there. It's not like what Omaha was more of a younger developmental league for guys. This is more of a deep, you know, I would say more of a higher level seniors, you know, seniors, sophomores, juniors and seniors, and upperclassmen, guys are just graduating. A lot of guys get drafted out of the league every year. So it's a pretty cool experience. I got 3 guys right now that are on the bubble, possibly going to be getting picked up. So it's always fun to see that. The Valley League has got a long reputation. They don't have some of the troubles that some of the other leagues have had, you know, and I've seen the good and the bad. You know, I've been in some really good situations and I've been in some really shitty ones. And last year was probably the worst situation, but at the same time, you know, all the guys got what they needed to get out of it. And you know, that was 50 to 60 ABs. And I think we played 33 games or so before it ended. And, you know, everybody got what they needed out of it. But yeah, we've got a really good setup, and we got a great ownership there. I think that we have the only woman owner and woman GM in Summer League baseball. So this is Stacy's our GM. She's fantastic. This is her first year, and then KK, she's the owner. She's a fantastic lady. This is her 5th year. So that you know, they get a little hard time from the guys, and you know, but at the same time, they've done a good job. And I've been up to Waynesboro. It's only 3 hours away, so I got pretty blessed. I'm in Virginia Beach now, and so I'm 3 hours away from home all summer long. And you know, I think it's going to be a great experience. You know, our roster is so easy. You know, when you go into last year, I had a tough time recruiting. The league I started, I wasn't going to take a job last year, and then I did. I took it late. And then I had a lot of hard time recruiting guys because the league had fell apart. When I first signed up with the league, there was 8 teams, and it somehow dwindled down to 4 teams. And I started seeing all these news articles. But when I got to the Valley League, it was so easy to recruit team, you know, for guys. And, you know, you can call, you know, USF and UCF, and they know exactly the Valley League because of the long tradition that they've had. And, you know, so it's a strong league. They don't have a lot of the bells and whistles like the Northwoods. Hobbs and Sonny are in for a treat, man. I mean, I've been in professional baseball leagues that don't treat you as well as the Northwoods, and I got lucky in 2020 during the COVID year. Northwoods League was like the only thing going in baseball in the whole country for a while. Like we had it made. Like there was no baseball anywhere except for us, and they live streamed our games. And there was no MLB, there was no minor leagues, there was no independent baseball. And people were starving for baseball at the time, but Wisconsin was pretty open. And you know, we'd go to places. I was in Wausau. We'd have 1,500 to 2,000 people in the stands. We had a pretty big ballpark, so they spread them out a little bit. But we'd go to lacrosse, and they'd have 8,000 people on fireworks night. Nobody was social distancing, and we lived a normal life, you know, up there in Wisconsin there for the summer. But our GM would come down, you know, every day we'd have a home game, and he was like, "Hey man, we had like 56,000 people watching you guys on the live links last night, watching you guys play. It's crazy." But we had the best players in the country. We had everybody. We had Ole Miss, we had Vanderbilt, we had Jack Leiter and what's his name that just got picked up. So we played against those guys. Tim, kid from Ole Miss,
Tim Elko.
Tim Elko, we played against him a lot. He was in Ron a lot. We had their first baseman. right now. I can't think of names, but we had Austin Miles from Alabama. He was the starting shortstop there. That kid played for us. Best athlete I'd ever seen.
Wow.
We had, a lot of good guys in the league, and a lot of guys, there's a couple guys that are in the big leagues already just from 2020 to now. So we've seen the best, and it was great baseball all summer long. Our team kind of got a pounding, but we were okay. We finished right around 500 and missed the playoffs, but it was a fantastic summer. Hobbs and we're gonna have a great time. The food. You go down to, I was in the Ohio Valley League and a couple other leagues where they fed you before and after the games, and before the game you'd get a sandwich, maybe a cold cut sandwich and a bag of chips and an apple. And after the game, you get a hot dog or whatever was left from the concession stand. But the Northwoods League, you go to Green Bay, they're feeding you steak, man. After the game, I'm talking steak and potatoes. I'm talking, ham dinners after the game. The spreads were always awesome. At our place, we had an actual chef that worked in the catering area. They had this big kitchen next to our clubhouse where they were cooking everyday pastas and all these things. And it was like being a big leaguer, man. I mean, it was great. Even for COVID year, it was definitely the best experience I'd ever had in baseball. So when I seen Hobbs got the job there, I was so, it's sad to see him leave Omaha. I think they've won it all 4 years that they've been there, and they've done a lot of good things in Omaha. And I wasn't surprised when I seen that Hobbs got the job at the Northwoods. And I was up for a job in the Northwoods over in Minot at the time, and I was looking forward to running into Hobbs again because I remember having some good battles there in Omaha against him the first part of the season. And then all of a sudden they took off. I don't think they lost a game after the All-Star break, and I think we struggled to win one. But those two guys, man, they're going to have a great experience up there.
I was going to say, I can attest to that a little bit. During the COVID year, I was playing baseball in Bancroft because, it was just a town league that was kind of going on. And then one of the coaches, he said that there were a couple of guys in North Dakota for the Bismarck Larks. They were looking for some pitchers and everything. So I was able to go up there for like 2 weeks, had to stay, and they helped out immensely. They got you hooked up with the host family so fast. Like, they had everything going for you. The food was pretty freaking awesome in North Dakota. So, and for the only 2 weeks that I was up there, I had not seen 90 for a while since we graduated high school. Maybe a couple of guys on D3, but I was facing a kid from Virginia Tech from the left side. He was 94, and I was like, all right, this is a different level. It's so much fun.
That Bismarck, you guys all played in Bismarck, right? All the teams
in
Bismarck? Yeah. You guys had a little different situation. How was it up there? Did you guys get a lot of fans in there?
We actually, we did. So like the main park was in like just outside of Minden, North Dakota. So it was like right on the line between Bismarck and Minden. And so there were the Larks, the Flickertails, and the Bull Moose. And so it was just 3 different teams, and we pretty much just played each other every single night. And like I said, I was only up there for 2 weeks, and they had guys that were coming back before they went off to school, or they were trying to bring guys up that were still starting school late that year. So, the competition was pretty fun. There was a kid that I got stuck in the hotel with for the first couple of days. He was from UC Santa Barbara. And we were talking, and he was, I believe, a shortstop, but kid was fast. He could hit. Bunting was a big thing. There were a lot of kids that could bunt up there and just control the barrel and everything. So it was pretty fun. Definitely a different feel when you're playing the same 3 teams for a bunch of nights, but the fans all came out. Everybody's host family was out every single night. I think there was one night we almost had like 1,300 people in the stands. It was just every single night guys were moving through. So
John does a good job. John's the owner up there, I think, in Bismarck, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. John owned the team that I was interviewing for up in Minot. He's a great dude. I think he was telling me about their experience and how they got through it when I talked to him on the phone. I tell you, that Northwoods League, it's a different level, man. And you get to see those guys who can really play the game. And when you see that every night, going back to what we talked about earlier about those guys who are playing at the smaller schools, it's funny how quickly they adapt to that faster speed of game by being around those guys, and they start picking up, they learn a lot more from each other, just by hanging out, sitting in the cages. And I know a lot of guys, if they're like me, they're not big on wanting to sit at home in the morning. So they get to the park early. And I always get to the park around 11 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, and I get a lot of stuff done. And I open the cages up for guys, and they come and they hang out, and they spend time in the cage, and they talk to each other, and I'm big on, you learn the most about the game when you start coaching and talking about it. I have my players do a lot of lessons in the summer too, so they're talking about the things. And when they start talking to each other and communicating, they learn a lot. So you get some of these, JUCO guys or D3 guys hanging with those Division I guys. They pick up a lot from them, and that makes them better on the field. So, and then it makes the better level guy better just by talking about it and teaching it, because he starts to understand. You start seeing the stuff that your coaches have been drilling in your heads for years, and you start explaining it to somebody. It makes you so much better, as a player, because you start understanding why. The why you're doing it instead of just go do it, and that's important. When you're communicating with players, is getting them to understand why, we're having you bunt in this situation, or why we need your hands in this position when you're bunting, or, things like that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, does anybody else have any other questions, Coach?
I do, actually. I remembered mine.
There we go.
Finally.
Woo.
Took you long enough.
Yes, sir. So you said it a couple times how you like to get your summer guys reps. So JD and I, we coach in the spring and summer as well. Not at the collegiate level, obviously. But I think a hard thing for the coaches that listen to the podcast, it is getting the guys reps. We always have to deal with parents coming up and be like, why is my kid not playing, and all that. How do you not determine how they get reps, but how do you, I guess, like evenly distribute that when you have talent, that is better, and then you have guys that maybe don't have that talent, but they have the work ethic? Like, how do you differentiate or divvy up the reps between guys?
You kind of have to. There's a couple different ways, man. I'm going to tackle the first thing you said about the parents coming up and asking you. Best way to get out of that is at the beginning of the season. My brother coaches Little League and travel ball and things like that, and he's always a problem. And I've been down there to help him a few times, when I'm not doing anything. And basically, I'll tell you guys, like I told them, first thing you do is you set the tone early. You make sure that you explain to the parents, I will not speak to you about your kids' playing time. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, this ain't the program for you. When you're the coach, you get to decide those things. And when it comes to deciding the playing time, you have to understand as a coach yourself that it ain't about the winning. And when you can do that, it makes it easier to slide guys who may, bring the team down a little bit into the lineup, and you have to be able to pick and choose when you do that. When you're going through it in the college summer league or independent pro ball or minor league baseball, the way you kind of do it is it's kind of the opposite of what you think. You don't always throw your best nine out there on the big nights when you have the best teams playing against you. If you want to get wins, you may need to play that best nine the next night or two nights later when you're playing a team that's struggling. So you got to find ways to get them in there when they're going to be successful, because you don't want to blow them up either and put them in there where they're not going to be successful and it blows their confidence, But you have to find ways to get them in there. And I play my guys on a pretty good rotation. When I have my middle infielders, I like, when I sign infielders for summer ball, I don't traditionally sign a guy who's only a third baseman. And it's because I'll have my middle infielders, I'll sign an extra shortstop and put them over at third. And I can rotate my second, third, and my shortstop around the infield, so they're getting maximum number of bats. And then, I sign guys to where, I'll sign three catchers, but one of my catchers also doubles as a first baseman. So I won't sign a second first baseman or a third first baseman. I'll just sign one that's a true first baseman. And then I'm able to give my backup catcher an opportunity there. Or, I save my spot in the DH lineup for a guy who can hit, maybe a catcher, what, that second catcher is a better hitter than the first, but so I find ways to do that. And then the outfield, you sign guys who can play all three positions. If you can play one position outfield, unless you're slow, you're pretty much playing all three. So you find guys that you can play and that are versatile in those positions. So you can give them the max amount of at-bats. And reps at their own position as well. You hate setting a guy out there at first base who's not going to play first base, but at the same time, it's more about the at-bats than the innings in the field when it comes down to it.
Interesting.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Hmm.
All right, Coach, do you have...
Oh, sorry.
Nick.
I was going to say, sorry, man.
Shut up, Josh. Boom.
What-
But like trying to find those guys that are able to kind of keep going through, and I would say the idea of the utility player has kind of become one of those new founded ideas that's, if you can be successful at that philosophy and trying to get to that status, I think that makes you kind of a better player as a development, or as developed in a whole. And I mean, you could contest to me if I'm wrong with that, but I mean, if you can see that development from being able to put yourself at third, first, and be a catcher playing all the corners and everything like that, I think that makes you truly a better player, and potentially even a better chance to be a 5-tool player if you have all those skills.
Yeah, the more things you can do on the baseball field, the better. It's going to give you more opportunities to get in the game. There's going to be days where, hey, you may need a third baseman, and you need, you got another guy sitting over there that's been sitting on the bench who's not as good as your starting shortstop, who could get over there and play. So the more things you can do on the field, and until you sign a pro contract, you should probably do a couple things, I think. You should be able to play a couple positions, because chances are when you get drafted, you may get moved to a position you've never played before. There's a lot of guys who get, drafted as shortstops who get moved over to second or third base, or guys who get, drafted as an outfielder turn into a pitcher all of a sudden. So you kind of got to know, and up your chances of getting, drafted or signed in professional baseball or the next level by playing multiple positions. When you go in, coaches love guys. I go back to Alex Miller. Alex Miller will do anything that you ever ask him to do. The kid can play outfield. The kid can, he's my right fielder. He could play center though if you need him to, but he also could play shortstop if you need, because the arm's there. And I've thrown him on the mound, and the kids gave me some quality innings. And that's it. And you find guys like that, and you love them because they can do anything you need them to do, without any. Then you get some guys in there that don't want to do that. They're stuck to their position. I don't know how to do it. And it's like, well, then you're only going to play when that spot's open, and that kind of takes some at bats away from you.
Makes sense.
Well said.
Very well said.
All right, is everybody done interrupting me?
I feel like
I'm
Nick
out.
just had a subtle plug for himself though with that question.
What do you mean?
He was a utility guy.
All right,
Yeah.
facts. Fair enough.
Got him. We exposed him. All right, Coach, do you have any questions for us or anything that you wanted to?
No, man, I had a great time. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. We appreciate having you on the show. It was fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. For
Yeah,
sure.
thank you, Coach.
Absolutely.
No problem, man. I loved it, guys. You guys are doing good. I've only got to hear the one with Sonny, but I want to go back and I want to be able to share this with the world. I got a lot of followers on social media that follow me for baseball things. I'd love to help you guys out, get your show up and going. A lot of coaches, college coaches, they like this stuff, man. And it goes back, and I'm good friends with a lot of coaches, and we talk about things, and this is a good thing. And you guys are young, and you guys are just getting into coaching and things like that. And that's what it's about. You learn from each other. When you have little things like this, you guys pick up little things, and you have as many coaches on as you can. I'll tell you guys are going to be smart as anybody else here before too long. But yeah, whatever I can do to help you guys out, let me know. Loved you guys' show. I like the one with Sonny. That was great. I have to go back and listen to that. You guys have Hobbsy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had Hobbs on as well.
Yeah, so and Josh can give you the spiel better than I can, but we're on all podcasting forums. So we're like on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we're on YouTube. Am I missing any?
Nope.
Those are the three big
Nope,
guys.
the main
the big
podcast
three.
platforms. You also got us on TikTok and Twitter at Homaha Pod.
Whatever.
Um,
So there's links to all those. We'll definitely send you the link to this one when Nick puts it all together, and you can post that wherever you want.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for wanting to post that and getting us out there, and thanks for coming on, for sure.
You guys got it, man. Anything I can do to help you guys out, let me know.
all right, we appreciate it.
Thank you,
so
Coach.
much.
All right, boys.